Hi, I'm Leah, I'm a visual artist, and in the Matera Project, I'm sharing my process for creating images inspired by my last visit to Matera in Italy, which is this amazing city with buildings one on top of the other and amazing stone constructions and stone churches and prehistorical caves. So it's an amazing place, and I was so inspired by this place that I took thousands of photos, and when I got back to my studio I started painting and drawing them. To select the reference photos, I went through all I had taken, choosing the ones that had more meaning for me and the ones that were more interesting to draw and paint. Then I printed a few to have on hand while drawing. The images of the buildings and houses, one on top of the other, have a medieval feel that I really enjoy, although Matera is way older than that. But then this church on the top of the hill caught my attention, and I started testing different possibilities of crop and format. I had two photos to use while working. One of them showed more of the background and the valley. I've already selected the reference photo for my next piece, and this time, instead of doing another view of the city as I was originally planning, something like this, and I was also thinking about working with soft pastels. This time I think I'll work with one building. I selected this church. This is the Chiesa de San Pietro, Chiesa de San Pietro, Caveoso. I think this is the name of this church. And in this case, I think I would like to do this with watercolors. So I will have the background very subtle, very soft, very diffuse. And the main subject, the church, will be with more detail. So this is different from what I was doing previously, because I was working with this city structure with lots of buildings. So it felt like a pattern, the city pattern. And now I'll be working mainly with one building. I have two different photos. One building that is the main subject of this piece, and the background and the plants and the valley there on the back. So I think this is something that I will enjoy very much to work with. And after that, I will go back to the plan of creating this image with soft pastels. If you'd like to watch the drawings I've made before the sketchbook study I'm doing in this video, check out my channel's page and subscribe for more. For this painting, I want to have a high horizontal line, so there will be more of the plants and rocks of the hill on the image than the sky. As for the format, I'll go with square this time, and I'll move the cacti or cactuses in the foreground a little bit to the left for a better composition. You don't have to draw perfect lines as margins for a sketchbook study, but since my early years in graphic design college, I've been trying to keep my studies tidy thanks to my dear professors. I'm dabbing the kneaded eraser to remove only part of the graphite. I want to keep the lines visible. Usually I start my sketches by marking the proportions and distances between elements I see in the reference onto the paper. Sometimes you have to stop and look more closely before continuing because understanding the image and the relationships between forms and shapes is essential for observational drawing. This is even more important when drawing from life, which is not the case here. In the photo, the church is almost sideways from our point of view, and it's so far away that we don't need much perspective in this drawing. In the final piece, I'll be more accurate, but right now it isn't necessary. If I were just following the photo, the cacti in the foreground would be almost completely cropped from the drawing. So I moved them to the left because I want to include them in the final painting. Now I'm marking color areas for the watercolor study in the next phase. I have watercolor sets from different brands and I love them all. This one is from the Van Gogh line by Royal Talents. This one is White Night by Nieskaya Palitra. And this one is a Rembrandt set also by Royal Talents. Now, let me organize the table before I start painting. The sky in this painting isn't the focal point and it's going to be very subtle and not too vibrant. This paper isn't made for watercolor, but as I said in a previous video, it works well for studies. This is a 100 Nostalgie sketchbook. Now I'm preparing 3 different greens on the same palette. On the middle I put sap green, that I want to be the base color. On one side I mix with a little bit of ultramarine blue, and on the other side with a little bit of yellow ochre and gunpowder. Then I start painting with the lighter color first. With a dry brush, I'm removing the excess water that I didn't want it in this part of the painting. I like painting small swatches on the side of the study to keep the information of the colors and watercolor brands I've used in it. Some of my yellows were getting dirty and turning green, so I cleaned them on the next day before doing the final touches. Sometimes I use a spray, other times I use a dropper to wet my watercolors. I wanted to add more texture to the plants, especially the cacti on the foreground, and more contrast in general. I also darkened some parts of the church. This was the process of creating the sketchbook study for the painting I'll be sharing with you next week. Now I want to tell you why I selected this church for the next piece of the Matera project. The reason why I selected the Chiesa di San Pietro Caveoso, St. Peter's Church, to be my next piece is because for me this was one of the highlights of our visit to Matera. Me and my friend Rodrigo, we were visiting together. Because I really enjoy the church itself. It's a beautiful Catholic church, very, very old. The inside is like from the 13th century, but the outside, the facade is like 18th century. So it has different styles from the outside and from the inside. And the inside is very simple. It has, it's not a Baroque church, so it doesn't have too many images. And the ceiling is made of wood painted. But I also enjoy when I was moving away from the church, we were continuing our visit, I kept looking back to the church, and then we could also see all this nature around the church and the valley outside. And this is a landscape that I find very interesting, you know. Also, as you can see here on top, we have another church, another beautiful church. This one is carved inside of the stone, inside of the hill. So it's really amazing, really impressive. Unfortunately, we were not allowed to take pictures inside of this church, so I don't have any images. But in this painting, I will focus only on the Chiesa di San Pietro Caveoso and not on the other one. So the other one will be just background. Now I'm going to move to the final piece. Painting this landscape on watercolor paper is going to be a pleasure, but it also has its challenges. I want to use 100% cotton paper and keep the background wet while I paint, so I can get a soft and diffuse effect. Will I be able to do justice to this beautiful place? Let's find out in the next video. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. I'm doing weekly videos where I'm trying to share my process during this project that I'm currently working on. If you want to know more and follow along, subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments what you think.